Hey guys, VaulSC here, hope that you're doing well. So I have been on YouTube for around about 15 years, and since the start of 2015 I have been making videos about Infinity the game, doing Infinity content, Infinity by VaulSC. And the reason I'm making this video right now is just to let you know that after 8 years of doing Infinity, I am going to start moving away from it and covering some other things. So the idea for this year, 2023, is that I'm going to gradually sort of phase it out, do less Infinity content, and move on to a couple of other things. And I really just wanted to make this video to tell you guys and give you that update, because at the moment a lot of my following really is for Infinity the game. I've been covering the game for about 8 years. I started right about the beginning of 2015, and we are in the first sort of half of 2023 right now, so it's really been a long time. And of course I'm just going to break down some of the reasons why that's happening, and letting you know how that may affect some of the community involved things I've been participating in for some time. But the main idea is that over time I'll be doing less stuff to do with Infinity the game by VaulSC and moving on to some other things. For those of you who have been following me for more than 8 years, thank you, by the way. It's a really long time. I mean, I've got 8,500 subscribers, but so many of those subscribers were from previous games that I covered way back in the day. Like when I started my channel, it was just StarCraft. That's why there's an SC after the Vol in my username. And I went on to do stuff about Warhammer Fantasy back in the day, the classic game of Warhammer Fantasy Battles before it was shafted in favor of Age of Sigmar. I also did a lot of 40k with the picture style bat reps. I was the first person to really do those. And then I also did some video games like Dawn of War. I remember moving into War Machine and Hordes around about 2010, and I played that game for about 5 years, and I did a lot of YouTube content about War Machine and Hordes. I really peaked with that in 2013 when I was really just playing all the time and building lists every day, and I did a clean sweep of all the tournaments in my country that year. I won them all, and then other people just got better than me, and I sort of fell off a bit. And when they brought out their next edition, I think it was Mark III, I didn't really like it so much, so I went and found Infinity, and that's what I've been doing since 2015. I think the main point that I want to get across in this video for people who have been watching me for a long time and maybe new people to my channel is that Infinity is a good game. Like, if you are on the fence, or you're just about starting Infinity, or you're a new player, or you have been playing Infinity for a while and you're going to continue playing it, that's not a mistake. Like, that's not a bad thing. It's a really good game in terms of its competition and the depth that you have in the gameplay. It is far superior to almost all, if not all, tabletop war games out there. So you are really playing a good game. And VaulSC, although they aren't perfect, they definitely give people a bit of a better deal than, for example, Games Workshop. And they, although, yeah, again, they're not completely onto it. They have, you know, some flaws, as I mentioned. You know, when I look back at what Privateer Press was doing and some of these other companies, you know, they're definitely not the worst when it comes to VaulSC. They make mistakes. They're not perfect, but they do get some things right as well. So I don't mean to say that my decision to sort of move on from Infinity somewhat is something that I am out there encouraging other people to do. It's more about the fact that I've been covering the game for about 8 years, and I want to cover some other stuff. I also need to make the important point that I will still actually play the game. Like, I'm not going to go sell all of my armies and just, you know, jump off a cliff. I've still got my miniature collection, and I'm still going to be playing games of Infinity, sometimes on TTS, but mostly with my mates, you know, in real life, you know, just the over-the-table games. The only thing different about it is I just won't be doing as many bat reps of the actual games that I play. I may not go to as many tournaments and so forth. So it's really just a transition away, because I want to try out a couple of different games and make that more of a focus on my YouTube channel going forward. Okay? So just to talk and break down in a bit more depth, you know, why I'm doing that now. I will say that after 8 years of really analyzing the game and playing it at a high level and just doing so many events and tournaments and sort of content on YouTube, you get to a point where just naturally you start to become a bit of an elitist, and you become a little bit arrogant about, you know, the way the game should be. And it's inevitable that when you play a game like that for so long and you play it so frequently, and I've played so many hundreds and hundreds of games of Infinity, you get to a point where you understand the game a lot better than the game designers themselves do, and the game itself is not being updated and moving quickly enough to satisfy you when you're just wanting more and more out of the sort of end game and the high level part of it. Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the game, as I said, for newer players and casual players, and even other people who want to still play the game at that really high competitive level where there's not that many options that are viable. But I must say that after 8 years, like kind of content that I'm making, as from the perspective of one of those people who's kind of really just like learned everything about the game and just taken most of what the game has to give, it gets to a point where like making new content, it just does become a bit of a chore, and it's more likely that I'm making videos that are kind of really critical of the game and are really salty and sort of just more talking about the negative side of things rather than being hyped up and excited about the game. There's no better feeling than getting into a new game and you're in your very first year of a tabletop war game, and you see all these miniatures and you're learning about the new rules and you're discovering new factions and the bat reps that you're covering, like game situations you've never been in before, and it's just so exciting. But you've got to understand that for me, it's not quite as exciting as it used to be, just because, you know, having played so many games and sort of played out all these different variations and studied every army list and faction and just really picked through it and seen the results of so many tournaments, it's just not as exciting as it was before. So naturally, that's one of the reasons why I tend to move on after a long period of time. I'm the kind of person that just sticks to one game and just really tries to squeeze everything out of it rather than playing lots of games at once. And this is definitely, as I mentioned, something that happens with me on YouTube too, is that every so often I'll sort of move on to covering something else. I think it's a testament to the fact that Infinity's so good that it's actually lasted me eight years, because for War Machine and Hordes, I got 5 years out of that game. Whereas Infinity, I'm still going even after this 8-year period. It's just doing a little bit less content. Before, it was like Dawn of War, Warhammer 40,000. A lot of those games just didn't really last me very long. So moving on, I've just got to say that Infinity has just been profoundly impactful and really got me a long way with making videos, and I've learned quite a lot about video editing from it. So I guess that would be the main reason why I just want to shift on to move to something else. I want to let you guys know that I'm quite interested in a couple of different games. One of them is Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings by Parabellum. That is a newer tabletop war game that is kind of like a nostalgic throwback to Warhammer, the game of fantasy battles that Games Workshop did for decades before they threw it off a cliff and replaced it with Age of Sigmar. I used to cover Warhammer Fantasy a lot way back on my channel. You can even see my old bat reps, which are still up there. The thing about Last Argument of Kings, Conquest, is that it's on a slightly larger miniature scale. I think it's something like 32 or 38 millimeters. It's definitely bigger than the 28 that we're used to. And the miniatures go onto these square stands, so it's a bit more regiment sort of based than individual model based. And I think the game looks a little bit more simplistic, but the art design is very, very good, and the balance of the game seems to be pretty solid. I would love to give you guys a review video of the game, but I haven't actually played any actual matches of the game yet. I've just been collecting the miniatures and painting the miniatures. So the very first video I do for Conquest is going to be a review just of the miniatures, not the actual gameplay. I'm going to be just doing some sort of footage of me unboxing and painting the miniatures and talking about the kind of plastic and how they're put together and sort of what I think of the aesthetics of a lot of the different factions. So it's always exciting to start a new game. Again, this could be something where I, just absolutely analyze the game to death and just throw it away after a year or two or even less if it doesn't turn out to be very rewarding long run. But I'm really finding it's just triggering my nostalgia and my sense of appeal for the old classic fantasy. I mean, sword and sorcery fantasy is kind of my favorite genre. I'm less excited about the Warcrow universe that Corvus Belli is getting into, just because I really feel like they don't know what they're doing. Whereas Parabellum seems to be a bit more dedicated and focused and sensible with a lot of the design decisions they're making. The factions that they've come up with are very, very good. I know that Alessio Cavatore is working on their rules development team. I didn't always like his decisions for Warhammer Fantasy back in the day, but he definitely is an experienced person when it comes to game design, and he's now working on that game, so it'll be interesting to see how it develops. But one thing I've been liking the look of so far is just the amount of support the game's been receiving from that company in terms of just generating a lot of new models and also developing the rules and continuing to update things. It seems to be going very, very smoothly, and I find the bat reps that the community's been making really easy to follow. And yeah, I've picked a faction. I probably will collect more than one faction if I stick with it for a while. And the local community for that game's been very, very good. The online community seems very positive, and I think that's partly because it's a newer game. The community hasn't really had the chance to get salty with any sort of lack of action or stagnation in the meta, because it keeps changing up. So that's always positive. Again, it's easier to do that with a war game in the early sort of the years. Harder to do it when the game's been around for 20 years. Which is the case with Corvus Belli. Although, having said that, I do fault Corvus Belli for not doing more to keep their game updated and fresh. Infinity still plays the same way that it has for many years, and it still suffers from the same drawbacks that it has for a long time. So Conquest is something I want to have a crack at. You guys will be seeing a little bit about that on my YouTube channel, and I may sort of set aside a little channel for it in Discord as well. My Discord, by the way, is staying where it is. All the Infinity stuff in there, it's not going away, so you guys are welcome to hang out. The other game that I'm a little bit interested in at the moment is Pathfinder, which is sort of like the TTRPG alternative to Dungeons & Dragons. One thing that happened at the start of this year is that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, who own the Dungeons & Dragons IP, the franchise, were going to sort of pull the rug out from under the feet of a lot of their independent content creators by updating their licensing agreement. And I just followed every YouTube video that came out about that, just because I love the drama of that sort of dynamic of like the all-powerful gaming company just taking a dump on the sort of like the powerless, consumers. But what ended up happening in that sort of case was that the community really rose up and just backlashed them so hard that they were forced to sort of back down and not go through with the appalling changes they were planning on making. And as I followed that story, I just got more and more interested in tabletop role-playing games. I've never really played like D&D. I haven't really been part of a group before, but I've always been around that community. I've always been around people that are into that kind of thing, and I know how it works. You guys saw my most recent episode of Table Game Fun Times where it was sort of about role-playing, and I did catch up with some friends recently to like have my first experience of Pathfinder just as a one-shot demo game, and it's pretty cool. I like role-playing, and I think that it's the kind of thing that I'd be really good at making content for. I think that my creative ability and my analytical ability together would allow me to make some really cool content in terms of explaining the game to new people, but also coming up with my own custom content which I can present in terms of a community would be really fun and exciting. So Conquest is one thing I'm interested in, and Pathfinder is another. So you guys might see a little bit of content about that on my YouTube channel later this year, maybe. As I said, I'm not completely throwing Infinity off a cliff. I'll still do some content for it, but unfortunately you're not going to see like lots of bat reps, lots of faction, like sectorial reviews, analytical videos, stuff like that. I know that that's what you guys want, because that's what I've been delivering for like 8 years, but I just have to be honest and let you guys know that that's not what I want anymore. Like, I have to move on, otherwise you guys are going to be getting content that's just made in a half-assed way where I'm not really putting my heart into it, and I just don't really think that we want that. I mean, videos that are just overly salty or whatever, I just don't really think that's the right way to go. So I will also remark about a few things that I've been involved in. Number one, the Steam workshops that I run, where I have the 3D miniatures workshop, which we're really proud of, not because really of my contribution, but because so many people have actually, like Zulu and Persian and Sneaky Snake and so many others who have been contributing miniatures to that workshop. Obviously, that's not going to go anywhere. Just because I'm making fewer Infinity YouTube videos doesn't mean I'm not going to look after it. Absolutely, send me your .json files if you want to add to that workshop, and I'll pop it in there and maintain it. That is not going anywhere. My Discord, as I said, a lot of people like going to my Discord and chatting about Infinity in the Infinity chat channel, just because it seems to be like a safe haven for people who have controversial views and want to be a little bit salty. And I get that, just because my channel has sort of led the way on that kind of attitude. And I know some people view that Discord as a little bit toxic, but if you are not sort of getting that conversation from the other Infinity Discords, that's sometimes the place to be. And I've noticed people chatting there, and just because I'm going to be doing less of Infinity doesn't mean I'm going to kick people out and sort of discourage that. Everyone's welcome to come in and talk about whatever game they want all the time. That is no worries at all. Table game fun times. I have one episode left to do. I've just started working on it. It is going to be the season finale, episode 8. If you guys haven't checked out Table Game Fun Times, please have a look. There, I'll put a little video link up here. It is an amazing series, and obviously I will still be finishing it this year. Just because I'm sort of just phasing Infinity in general out doesn't mean I'm not going to continue with that final episode. I get along great with the actresses in that show, and I'd love to do another season of Table Game Fun Times in the future, but the way I imagine it is that in terms of the story, I would probably film them and do stories of them playing a different game that's not Infinity. The stop motion stuff that we've been doing has been really, really cool, but I have just taken photos of every single miniature I own at this point, and like the entire terrain collection, we're just almost at our end there, so any future stuff that I do in terms of Infinity stop motion is going to be a bit repetitive. It's going to bring out some of the same stuff again. So it would be nice to actually do a little bit of that with, in the context of Conquest or Pathfinder, just using other sort of terrain sets and miniatures in the long run. So I might do a little bit more of that. I should also mention that there is another YouTube channel out there that I'm now involved in, more on in terms of photography and video editing, less so much the actual direction of the content, so that's taking up a fair bit of my time. I've been getting more interested in photography and video editing and learning a lot about that over the last 12 months, so that's sort of taking my time away from the whole sort of, just constantly building Infinity lists and playing on TTS all the time, which is sort of what I was doing during the pandemic. So that has generally changed quite a bit. Cool. So lastly, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who supported me for my channel and just in general and played games with me. We've built up a really, really cool Infinity community, which is not really going away. There are heaps of other Infinity YouTubers out there now who are doing the stuff that I started. So if you guys like the sort of slideshow picture backgrips with sort of diagrams drawn over them, there are other YouTubers who do that. If you guys like the sectorial reviews where I'm sort of going through all of the loadouts and the profiles and commenting, other people do that as well, so you've got that now. Even sort of just the tips and tactics and reviews and top 5 lists or whatever, that is available on YouTube. Like, there are quite a lot of Infinity YouTubers who do that. Just the hype and the talking up the new releases and products, people are doing that as well. So it's not exactly like it's a barren wasteland, it's just, an empty void being left. Other people are going to be, providing that content, so please do support them and watch their videos. And you're welcome to stick around with me if you're interested in the kind of content I do, but if not, that's fine, totally understand. Cool. So yeah, just wanted to get it off my chest. Wanted to tell you, I wanted you to be the first to know, the audience, I wanted you to hear it from me first. And if you have any questions, I'll be around on Discord. Just because I'm making this video doesn't mean I'm completely stopping the content. I will be putting out some Infinity-related videos in the future. But yeah, it's just going to be fewer, and it's going to be phased out over a long period of time. So thank you for listening to that. Much appreciated. And yeah, catch you later.